you have obviously, signed up for this webinar knowing the title, what the most successful online programs have in common. What does that mean specifically? Well, it means that there are a number of online offerings from most major schools in the country right now, and not all of them are successful. A quick search on Google of news articles in some trade publications will show you that some of the largest universities have attempted to move into the online learning space and failed at it. University of Florida, University of Texas, they have online offerings, but they started them in years past with very large aspirations to be the next Arizona State, to be the next Liberty, and it didn't work out that way because the mindset of offer online and the students will come is not necessarily true. There are nuances, even with the younger generation, in offering online education opportunities that can set you up for more success. So today we're going to talk through, if I can ever convince this to advance, we're going to talk through quite a bit today that is not entirely Statwax findings. I'll be perfectly candid with you. We have a lot of data in here today, culled from a number of sources that we have worked with over the years. And when I send out the deck, I'll be sure, if anyone's interested, to send out the full reference sheet, because there are some national studies in here. There's some proprietary Google information that we get as partnerships with them. There's a lot of learning from Statwax's own higher ed clients and the campaigns that we've run and the data we have crunched. The important thing to take away from this today is, as we step through everything, this is actual data from actual nationwide studies and outcomes. None of this is arbitrary or small sample size. This was all brought together from trustworthy third-party sources, from Statwax's own data, from the digital platforms themselves. So as you can see on our agenda, a lot to go into. We will step right into it with why online in the first place. We know online is big. We know it's been growing. These are the numbers that really set us up for why are we giving this presentation today? Why this particular topic? And when diving into that, there's obviously a big elephant in the room that we're going to address right off the bat. The state of online learning as it stands right now today is so far different from where it was 60 days ago. The COVID pandemic has fundamentally changed how the country and how prospective students view online learning, probably forever moving forward. It's the same as with remote work and video conferencing. This whole situation has shined a light on the fact that online learning is possible. It should be expected in many cases. People who maybe didn't care for it or didn't know if it was right for them are suddenly realizing it could be. It has forced a spotlight onto online learning, and only time is going to tell what that means long term. Right now, there are schools who, quite frankly, were not ready for this shift to online. We're not ready for what we understand is unprecedented impact from this pandemic, because they were maybe slow to launch their online offerings to their current students. Will their retention suffer? Will traditional schools start really investing heavily in online and try and grab the momentum that comes moving forward? Will the growth continue even faster than ever before once people can go back to school, go back to jobs and everything? We don't really know yet, but we do know that if there's one area that's had a big spotlight shined on it in higher ed because of COVID, it is the option of online distance education. Now, even without COVID, online has been growing substantially. We probably all know this. This graph doesn't show a full 14 years. It only goes back to 2012. But for 14 straight years, there has been steady growth year over year in the number of students in the US taking at least some online course. That's a key word, some online. The enrollment of pure online is growing, but there's been some dips and valleys. It's been a little tougher to take hold, and we'll show you in a minute what that divide still is. But if we look at just enrollment in some form of online education, it is on a 14-year growth pattern, whereas the enrollment of students with no online has been declining steadily in the same amount of time. At this stage, more than 70% of all public institutions in the US do offer some form of online courses. This is probably not surprising. I was actually surprised that it was not 80 plus, 85 plus. It's hovering right around 71, 72% right now, according to most studies. But the big takeaway here is that online enrollment is predicted and projected to go a little bit the opposite way of overall traditional school enrollment. We've been talking about in higher ed this cliff that's coming, this fall off in higher ed enrollment. But online stands to still continue to benefit for many years right now because total enrollment volume might go down. That is the projection, especially post COVID, at least in the short term. But of the enrollment that's left, more and more of it is going to continue to be online. Right now, more than a third of higher ed students nationwide, this is adult learner, traditional, your entire makeup of higher ed students, more than a third take at least some online offering. Here's the divide I was talking about. It is still skewed heavier to students taking some online courses. And we're going to talk today a little bit about how some of the most successful ones actually play into that and don't try and position themselves as fully online. But there are still 3 million plus students right now going to fully online programs. This is typically in your massive online schools that you see and hear about quite often, the University of Phoenix, or taking the Liberty University online approach where you don't even have to have ties to the campus at all. But there are still quite a few who look for that fully online offering, just not as many yet as those who are stepping into it with a hybrid approach. So how is that online trend going to continue? Why do we know it's going to continue? Well, in studies, more than half of online students, more than 50%, say that if the program had only been offered on ground, they would still enroll. And nearly 66% of them who had the choice between online and on ground chose online. What does this mean? It means that online is the first choice, even when it's not the only choice. First of all, they are actively bypassing campus in order to take it online. And the fact that they still would take it if it was only offered on ground means that online is not the sole driver of seeking out higher education for these students. Online is not a deterrent for them anymore. They're not saying, well, I'm only going to take this because I want an online class. They're saying, I want higher education in this program. Perfect. Online is there. If it wasn't, yeah, I probably still would have enrolled. What this means is that as your traditional enrollment might start dropping, as projections indicate, there is still momentum to be gained. It doesn't mean that folks who want online or who would be comfortable with it are going to go away. They're going to be there more and more. And in many cases, 2/3 of the time, they're going to actively bypass campus, actively bypass the classroom for that online experience. This means that even the struggling schools or even the smaller schools can combat some enrollment loss through an offering of some new online programs. And then the sections of this ahead, we're going to talk about some of the key ones that could be the path to most success early on for a school looking to step into that. Additionally, offering a hybrid approach is a great way to transition into online offerings. This does not have to be entirely a go big or go home. There are certain times and reasons why you might want to take that approach, bring in an OPM or bring in, a marketing partner to basically do all of it for you because of the scale required. That doesn't always have to be the case, though. If you can stay local and abide by some of the recommendations and strategies we're going to talk about today, you can offer a hybrid approach that plays into some of the prospective student base who wants to bypass the classroom, but still skews heavier toward that general population who is uncomfortable with the fully online experience. So what to offer in all of that is, of course, one of the key pieces in deciding how to launch an online offering or how to optimize one that you already have. There's a lot of misconceptions in this that we found very interesting when going through some of our data and from some studies. This is a hierarchy of the most popular degree types the ones that the majority of online students are enrolled in the US. Probably not a huge surprise that master's is the top one. What has been surprising is the share that masters and bachelors take up. A lot of people hear about certificate offerings, especially with community colleges and for-profit schools, things of that nature, and think certificate must dominate. In reality, master's and bachelor's programs are more than 73% of online offerings in the US right now, and by far are the highest enrolled degree types or offerings of any online programs in the country. And you can see on the right side of this how the hierarchy goes down. Probably not terribly surprising. The lowest percentage of online enrollment in the US is postmaster's certificate and doctoral. Very niche, very involving. But masters, you hear online MBA all the time, things of that nature, really does dominate in terms of who is looking for a program like that and who is willing to enroll and how many folks are currently enrolled. Now, program type, the most common ones and the largest ones in terms of enrollment, differ from undergrad to graduate a little bit. We talked masters versus bachelor's and certificate. Here's your divide. For the undergrad online offerings, nearly a fourth of them are business. Probably not a huge surprise on the top three here. Business, healthcare, and an IT or computer science round out that top three. What is interesting is that over the past 4 or so years, business and IT have actually lost a little bit of ground. They're still number 1 and 3, respectively, in terms of total enrollment. Healthcare is creeping up. Social sciences is creeping up a little bit. But healthcare is actually growing quite a bit as schools have figured out how to blend online offering for things like RN to BSN with some on-ground requirements such as lab work. Now that that's become a little easier to offer, healthcare has started to be on the rise, and business and IT have given ground a little bit in terms of the most popular and in demand undergrad offerings. You'll notice education and STEM is at the very bottom. When we look at graduate, they actually rise slightly. Top three are unchanged. So, undergrad or graduate online offerings, it's all about business, healthcare, and then IT. But if you're looking at master's level, graduate level online programs, huge demand and opportunity for education and science, technology, engineering, math offerings. Education specifically. Education had the biggest difference of these from undergrad to grad in terms of popularity and demand. What does this mean? What is the takeaway here? Oftentimes, we find that schools will first deploy online offerings that they feel are the easiest and have the broadest appeal. Arts and humanities, liberal arts online offerings, social sciences require less niche input, less niche curriculum, a less experienced professor or less experienced firm to help develop the curriculum. They have widespread appeal. They're very easy to deploy and then market to a general populace. But the data is saying those are not the most popular and in-demand offerings. They sort of become the self-fulfilling prophecy that there's a lot of them out there because of the perceived ease of launching them, but the actual enrollment is skewing to other programs. There's more demand for business, healthcare, IT. If a school can put in the extra effort to develop online curriculum in those fields, it doesn't matter about the preconceived notions and the broad appeal. The enrollment will come at higher levels. The data for 4 years on now is showing that. And that's where a lot of schools misstep when choosing which programs to first step into for online. The other area that schools tend to not plan as well for right off the bat, especially when marketing and trying to bring new students in, is the journey is wildly different for someone who wants an online education versus someone who's looking for your traditional on-ground experience. This is the key takeaway of the journey of an online student in the US right now. When an online student starts researching which online school to go to, they will start with an average of less than 3 schools in mind. For traditional on ground, that number is actually about 3.6 to 3.7. So right off the bat, The online education research journey is starting with one fewer school in mind. We're going to talk in a little bit about how localized online education actually tends to be. That plays very much into this. Students who decide to seek out an online offering are very aware of a handful of schools right off the bat. By the end of it, they're going to apply to less than 3 on average. There's a small percentage of online enrollment who say that they apply to 5, 6, 7 schools, just like traditional on-ground prospects do. But on the average, less than 3 schools apply to per online prospect. A little over half of them know right off the bat the program they want. 45% of them say they really have no idea. This isn't that different than the traditional student journey, especially with colleges long offering, general education and core classes while you figure out your major and things like that. Online does skew a little bit towards knowing right off the bat a little better what program they want, simply because not every program is offered online. It just sort of self-fulfills a little bit. If I don't know what I want to do, it's easier for me to take a general ed class or just start taking core classes on campus of the school. Online, it's very clear at most schools and universities right now, colleges and universities, here are our online offerings. So I wouldn't put a ton of stock into that, except if you're launching paid search efforts, if you're launching paid social efforts, just marketing in general, know that more than half of your prospect base probably already knows exactly what they want to enroll in. So make it very clear what your offerings are. Make the user experience on your website very easy to find and hone in on each individual program and its requirements, because more than half of your prospect base is probably looking for exactly that and nothing more. The biggest surprise and takeaway I want you to have on this journey map right here: 2/3 of online students do their research, make a decision, and apply start to finish in less than 4 weeks. That's extremely fast compared to traditional education. Traditional education uses thousands of marketing touch points from beginning to end. You apply, there's all this post-application nurturing and conversations, and I'm not saying they don't have those in online higher ed. They certainly do. But everything that takes place in deciding where to go to school, what to do, when to apply, and having the information is just crunched substantially for online. It means if you're doing enrollment marketing for a traditional offering right now, you need to speed up all of those touch points, shorten your remarketing look back windows, be very aggressive with your email follow-ups, your phone calls, etc., because this is happening much more rapid fire across fewer schools and typically with a program already in mind. So there are a few obstacles during that 4 weeks that have been highlighted as the key elements that your prospective students are looking to answer, and that the best schools and online programs are answering for them. So if you don't have these things front and center on your website, your landing pages, in your follow-up information, the schools with the best enrollment and the best performance there, these are the things they're answering right off the bat wherever possible, because these are the items that prospects are saying, I need to know. The most common question looked to answer: transfer credit opportunities. We talked about how more than half of current online enrollment right now is still in that hybrid model. A lot of folks are still looking to take online with the hope of doing one of two things: bringing in some credits that they had already taken before deciding maybe the traditional college route wasn't for them, or vice versa, taking some online, knocking it out now because maybe it's just better for their schedule, for where they're at in life, whatever, and then transferring that somewhere else when they go continue their degree. Maybe get an online certificate and transferring and get a degree later, things of that nature. Whichever direction it goes, the key question most often looked to be answered during the online education research process is, what are my transfer credit opportunities? Close second, what is the financial aid available? We're going to talk in a few minutes about the key audiences involved with online learning. Oftentimes, cost is a major determining factor for them. Financial aid in terms of a traditional university is a concept a lot of people understand, FAFSA and all of that. A lot of that applies to online, but people don't know if it does. Online learning is still a very new concept to a lot of people. And we live in an age where a lot of folks can see Udemy and Coursera advertising on Google, $10 courses and things like that. They don't know if that's the same concept at a school, if they're suddenly going to have to be paying as much as a university's full tuition, how the credit hours stack up. It's just a little bit of a wild west still in terms of information. A lot of prospects really need to know that financial aid availability, because when looking at the one common obstacle or detriment to choosing and going ahead and pulling the trigger for an online offering, the most often cited challenge is difficulty estimating the actual cost. It's difficult to estimate the actual cost of traditional school right now. We all know that. Books, room and board, etc. No different for online. The difference being, online has marketed itself as such a flexible, always available, shorter term option that prospects go into it assuming it should be very easy to price it out. They almost assume it should be like purchasing an e-commerce offering. So difficulty diving in and understanding how many credit hours are required, what is the cost, what is going to be my total out-of-pocket investment. That is often a big stopping point for people because it's a big obstacle for them to find. Make sure you're very clear in that wherever you have opportunity to eliminate friction during that research process. Now, information obstacle is not necessarily a decision-making factor. It is a deterrent, and it is a piece of information that is going to help someone determine if online is right for them and if they want to continue down this path. But if you were to sit down online students, as many of these studies and as Statwax ourselves have done, and say, what at the end of the day, once you got all your information, did you decide was your main factor for choosing this school over that one? The answers are actually different. Tuition and fees is still the number 2 factor, but number 1 is actually the reputation of the school. So information obstacles, potential pain points, and things people want to find during the research, transfer credits, and cost. But all things being equal, what is the main factor that makes them decide school X over Y? The reputation. Then the tuition and fees. We're going to talk, I mentioned already, we're going to talk about the localization aspect. Online learning is still very heavily tied to the school itself. If you eliminate a few of the big players, I'm not saying anything about reputation of Phoenix, Western Governors, Liberty, etc. What I'm saying there is they have created this online offering so separate as a brand from a Liberty University or at Arizona State University that that's a little bit different. But if I'm just a normal traditional college or university stepping into online, the reputation of my school is going to be a major determining factor for students going ahead and enrolling in that online offering, even if they never plan on setting foot on campus. And then when we look at value, what I call the value propositions, these are the things that the best online programs and those enrolled in them in the most successful schools put front and center and offer more than anything else. If you had to choose 4 things that you combined into an online offering to make sure you check off those boxes to set up for the best chance of enrollment success, when looking at all of the commonalities across all higher ed enrollment right now and all the studies, these are the 4 that come up as the most valued and the most necessary when students make their choice. Year-round offerings and accelerated learning that will get them in and out quicker than a normal traditional offering, some self-paced aspects, but a hybrid mix of some live group or on-ground elements. That's the biggest surprise right there. The majority of online students today in 2019 and 2020 still value and want at least some live element where they're chatting directly, even if not in person, even if just over Zoom or something, where they're live interacting in a normal class type setting. Self-paced is great for most of it, but the studies and data show the best success comes not when you leave it completely isolated to just a single student and emails with a professor. You need a little bit of that live, or even bringing them to campus a little bit once a quarter or something, offering, but then most importantly, year round and accelerated. Most online offerings hit those first two very well because that's the whole point behind online. It can be offered with multiple starts outside of the normal semester schedule, and typically those programs offered are going to end up being shorter than your traditional university offering. Another thing that you must have and must play into: accessibility when it comes to mobile. Mobile dominates on just about everything we're doing digitally right now anyway. We at Statwax, we're digital marketers, so we'll say until we're blue in the face, it's a mobile first world. We see that on all of the ads that we run. In education, you're going to see it in all of the online offerings that you do as well. 87% of online prospects are doing their research on a mobile device, which means if your school's website isn't mobile optimized, your marketing isn't mobile first or mobile optimized, right off the bat, you're acting as a big turnoff for a lot of these folks trying to make those decisions, which again are occurring very rapidly in a short window of time. Once enrolled, more than 2/3 of online students do their coursework pretty much only on mobile. Not to date myself, but I'm not that old, but I remember going to college and there were not mobile devices to do coursework on. I personally cannot wrap my head around some of the tasks required in college being done on a mobile device, even as fast and as big as they are now screen-wise. But that is the generation that this new group of students has grown up in, only knowing mobile, only knowing social media, only knowing high-speed internet. The majority of them are going to bring that to their coursework. If you enroll students in an online offering and then suddenly require them to have a desktop or even a powerful laptop to take part in class and get work done, that's going to be a big deterrent. That's where a lot of smaller schools have actually found their retention plummet, because they got good enrollment off the bat and they were smart with marketing. But when it came time to actually offer up the online experience, they fell flat because the infrastructure wasn't there, the planning wasn't there to make it mobile first and make it accessible on the go. Audiences. We just talked a little bit about that younger generation that's very mobile first. They are not the only ones to focus your marketing efforts and your messaging efforts on when looking to grow online. In fact, they are probably, I would say, very far secondary. We like to think that online is very cutting edge, it's very tech focused, it's probably going to be for the younger generation. In reality, online enrollment right now skews much older. More than half, nearly 60% of all online enrollment in the US has a child. More than half are employed. 75% also are citing career reasons for taking online courses. So this is not a matter of the bulk of online learning being people coming right out of high school and taking it because they've just always grown up with the internet and it seems like the next thing to do. Most folks taking online learning right now are actually later in life looking to transition to a new job, looking to upgrade their skills or get a better salary. I have several friends who, are project managers, and with an online MBA, were able to take on more, corporate-based responsibilities, things like that. That is a big motivating factor for a lot of people looking to online. This career climbers group is going to grow substantially. It sucks to say, but we know what the job market is doing right now. We know what unemployment has done over just the last 3 weeks and what is likely going to happen. We are going to see more than ever a massive chunk of folks in the US suddenly find themselves having to look for what comes next in their job and in their life. And for a lot of them, they're going to be juggling family. They're going to be cognizant of their financial stability and the fact that they've been in one career for a while and all of a sudden this COVID pandemic put a halt to that and they need to rapidly retool their skill set to move forward. That's going to be a huge area of momentum for online enrollment. and that is a non-traditional adult learner. Again, like these, with children, employed, although a lot might not be employed moving forward. But this is the largest chunk of online enrollment. If you're marketing and you're messaging and you want to be successful, play into this. Call out wherever possible job placement or in-demand skills that they'll learn, speed of completion, flexibility, things like that, that someone who is looking to advance their career and do so rapidly is going to immediately take notice of. There's also another side to this, degree completers. This is the other chunk of that adult learner segment that is very popular with online. These are folks who maybe started on the traditional EDU path once upon a time, but it wasn't right for them. Community college transfers, just your general adult learners who decide now is the time to skill up to advance my job. Degree completers and career climbers have a big overlap on the Venn diagram. But also stop outs. If you're a traditional school who is now starting to offer some online, pull a list of your past stop outs, folks who started but didn't finish for whatever reason. And unless they didn't finish because they were kicked out or something like that, load them into some digital efforts, create some custom audiences, create some email blasts, and market to them for that online offering. Stop outs are one, and stop outs and community college transfers, that degree completer, one of the largest untapped markets of higher ed potential in the US. It's not in this deck, but a recent study a few weeks ago, I believe by the Higher Ed Chronicle or Chronicle of Higher Education, found that there's 30 million plus of them in the US right now. They're not all going to go back to school, but they all know what the higher ed experience is like. And because they stopped before finishing it, we know that there's opportunity to message to them that they can get skills, they can upgrade their job, they can move forward or move upward a lot faster than maybe they could once upon a time with these accelerated on their own schedule online offerings. Oh, I do have it in the deck. My apologies. 36 million. I'm glad I cited it correctly. So yes, this is the breakdown of it. 36 million Americans, this study was done about 3 weeks ago, have attended college without earning some type of credential outcome. They skew older because this is skewing toward a previous generation before online was offered, when it was more of just your traditional or your community college mix. It's a 50-50 split, just slightly skewed toward women. On average, as you can see, they left college a decade ago. They haven't revisited in some time. Chances are they left and probably found a good career and are working just as they have been. This, again, not be a Debbie Downer and sad to say, but this is going to be the time when a lot of them are starting to find those careers coming to an end because of this COVID pandemic, because of how the market and the jobs are reacting. They have not needed to gain new skills. We call them underemployed a little bit. They might be perfectly happy and perfectly well employed, but with an accelerated course or just the completion of that college experience that they had started, they could be looking at the potential of a promotion, a raise, a new career, something of that nature. And then the majority of them were in community college before leaving. So if you're going to message to them, keep that in mind as well. Keep in mind what experience they would have had before, what types of transfer credit opportunities there might be. But this is a very large, as yet untapped bucket that a lot of schools are finding success in marketing to these folks to kickstart their enrollment in some online offerings. So again, we talked about how to adjust your messaging. Focus on the offerings, on the value propositions that are going to fit this non-traditional learner base. Flexibility and affordability are huge. If you have those 8 to 9 week offerings, which tend to be the most popular and the most commonly sought after, mention that shorter time to completion, how frequently they can start. A lot of folks who aren't very familiar with online offerings are going to just assume it works on the same calendar as traditional EDU. I need to start in spring or fall. That's it. If you're set up to have starts every month or once a quarter, mention that. Let them know that they can get in and then get out all quicker than the traditional opportunities that they had been used to. Hone in on those key demographics. Turn to your digital platforms and segment out by age, by gender, by income level, or job industry, by previous education experience. Purchase some lists or visit some lists of your past stop outs and really market specifically to them. Call out the job placement, the skills, and the demand piece as well. These are the things that we have seen across the board resonate far, far better than just saying we're offering X program online. Excuse me. Localization is perhaps the most surprising and least thought of, but most impactful aspect of a successful online offering. The most successful and highest enrolled programs at traditional colleges and universities got that way by playing in to the data of localization. And here's what I mean by that. Nearly 80% of all online students in the US are enrolled at an institution that is within 100 miles of where they are living. Half of them are just 25 miles away. Again, think back to the data at the very beginning. Folks are actively bypassing campus by their own choice, not because there is no campus anywhere near them. In fact, most would prefer to have at least some campus visit or some live opportunity spread throughout the year. So that's a common thread right there, which is why we say offer a hybrid approach. But at the end of the day, folks are bypassing campus while still being and wanting to be very close to campus. All of the data that we have looked at, the efforts that we have run for folks, I chose Purdue because they're in our own backyard, not for any specific reason, but all of the efforts and all of the studies that have been done, not just Statwax, but the Learning House, EAB, all of them, if you look at them, will say the same thing. The best enrollment for online programs is going to come from within 150 miles of your physical campus location. Everything outside of that is a massive fall off in terms of diminishing returns. If you're going to use marketing dollars, highly suggested to maximize impact as much as possible in a 150-mile radius, which, as you can see on the map, is still a pretty good chunk. If we expanded this by another 20 or so miles, we're suddenly incorporating 4, almost 5 major metro areas. So we're not talking just one neighborhood here. It's still a good radius, but if you go outside of that 150-mile radius, you are going to be butting up against several other schools who are on the same data as you, getting the majority of enrollment and interest from within that radius. Because again, what is the number one deciding factor? School reputation. What is one of the most desirable aspects? Some live or on-campus opportunities. The further from your campus you go, rapidly and exponentially, the less chance you have of someone choosing your school, even for an online offering, even one that can enroll nationwide. When you start to get really far away, if they're still looking for online offerings and they're not looking for a school within 150 miles of them, chances are it's because they're looking at the big players, Phoenix, WGU, Strayer, etc. You're coming up against hefty competition that has the infrastructure in place. So when you combine all of those factors with the fact that the majority of students are always going to be within 100 miles of the physical campus, your best bet is to take your marketing dollars and ensure maximum impression share, maximum share of voice within that radius before really stepping broadly outside of it. Most online students are still visiting campus once per year. And here is the trend. Now, this was in 2018. This is not a Statwax study, and I really hoped to find updated numbers, but the most recent that I trusted I found was 2018 versus 2017. In that 1 year, there was a 10% jump in the number of online students who were in programs that brought them to campus at least sometimes. Synchronous learning, basically. Asynchronous, totally online. No in-person, no live elements. Synchronous, with some live on-ground elements, has actually been growing in popularity. It's very hard to offer a fully online course beginning to end. It's even harder for students to find success in it all of the time. That's asking a lot of someone who the data suggests on average is juggling a child, a job, oftentimes both, inflexible schedules. Having them sit completely isolated, beginning to end in an offering and complete it successfully is very difficult. Bringing them on campus, and the reason they want to come to campus at least once per year, there is there are advisors. There is a safety net there. There are groups there. They can get a little bit of that feeling and help motivate them along. It's why over time online students come to appreciate the opportunity to visit campus some, and it's why over time it has become this self-fulfilling prophecy that most are going to end up in an online course where it's very easy for them to still access the campus the one or two times they actually need to. So what can you do to play into this? We already talked about the marketing dollars. Own the area. Treat your online offerings as if you were still building a relationship as an on-ground campus, because in essence, you are. If you build connections with local employers, first of all, there's always opportunity. They're going to send students your way to level up their skills and help them in their own business while they're still working. But also, you can figure out what job opportunities and workforce opportunities are there in your area. You can play that up when you advertise your programs. Focus on programs that have local impact. Programs that you know are going to be in demand in your area when that prospect graduates, because then you can talk up job placement. You can talk up work opportunities. It's not as though you're offering a nursing program in a metro area that had no hospitals or doctor's offices, right? You don't want to have someone investigating a program when in all likelihood they live very close by and there's no job opportunity for them when they come out of that. That's not going to end well a couple of semesters in. All of a sudden you're going to start to get that fall off. Choose to focus on programs that have that local aspect, because your students are going to predominantly be local individuals. Now, there are challenges to all of this. We've talked a lot about what are the common threads behind successful online and successful enrollment. There's some common challenges as well. Number one, that traditional learner, the younger generation coming right out of high school or not the adult, they bring their own challenges. Primarily, they're the biggest ones who don't want fully online classes. It sounds weird to say because we spent so long talking about they've grown up with mobile, they've grown up with internet, but still, on the whole, they need a little bit of that on campus or that live safety net. These are Gen Z, I guess is what we're calling them now. Alpha is still too young. So let's say Gen Z. On the whole, they have very short attention spans. They've grown up with social networking, with a lot of group interaction, mobile texting, things like that. They've always been connected to people. Fully online eliminates some of that, or they at least think it does. If you can offer up to them the fact that, yes, you take this fully online, but once a week, you're doing it together on a Zoom call where you can chat and see each other, that's different than saying, this is totally self-paced. It's just you and a professor and you email everything in. That's what I mean by fully online. You need to offer some sort of live interaction, whether it's on campus or just live in person virtually. The best way to do this, to step into it if you're new to the online offering, start to bake online courses into your normal degree offering. Don't try and enroll in something that's 90% online, 10% in person. Go the opposite way to test the waters a little bit so you can get feedback about your online infrastructure and your online offering. Let folks in your on-grounds programs get a taste of online in the first couple of years or first couple of semesters and figure out what they liked about it, what they didn't, what curriculum is still missing, and expand from there. They'll be much more likely to get involved with it from there and give you good feedback at that point, and you won't have to put the full might of online development behind an entire program right off the bat to do so. Dual enrollment or dual credit while they're still in high school is another great way to test the waters. Let high school seniors take an online course from you while they're still in high school. Get that feedback and let them get a taste of what online at your school means and how it works, and they'll be much more apt to continue on moving forward. Same with summer course offerings. This generation, this type of learner wants a hybrid offering because they still want that human interaction a little bit, If they know it's not possible for them to be on campus right now anyway, because they're in high school or it's summer, what better time to offer up something that's fully online so that they can have a taste and make it a little bit easier to transition in when the time comes. There are also challenges with the adult segment. These are a little easier to understand, mostly because we're all adults. We've lived our lives, we've been there. Work schedule difficulties, family responsibilities. I have had a hell of a time just in 3 weeks adapting to working from home because I have a toddler who runs amok all day long and doesn't know why he must be kept indoors. I have a work schedule. I have things that are due. We still have to go to the store safely and provide groceries and things. These types of responsibilities for your non-traditional learner dominate. So they do not historically, even across the most successful online programs, perform well. They have to have certain other measures in place. If you want successful retention and graduation of non-traditional learners in an online offering, you need to really beef up support systems. Face-to-face advising a couple times a year to keep them on track during all of life's many obstacles that are going to get thrown at them. Much more flexibility in when they take courses, when they log in for things, when your classes start. Accelerated completion we've already talked about, but exploring unique ways to offer financial aid, especially as we move forward in this post-COVID job market. These are things your high school senior isn't thinking or caring about, but your adult learner, which is your biggest area of untapped potential, very much at risk of not succeeding if these things aren't addressed and these support systems aren't provided. We see it time and again with schools who bring in huge cohorts of adult learners, but expect them to fully pace themselves. We talked about stopouts, the 36 million who went to college and for whatever reason didn't finish. If being on campus at a college years ago, for whatever reason, didn't work out, we would be foolish to think that a decade later, with everything that life now throws at us, taking that same person and dropping them into something that's totally self-paced with no support system would suddenly work out for them. It won't on average. So they need that extra support, that extra advisement, and that extra flexibility. And then when we talk about a challenge to prepare for, if you're going to go big, you have to prepare for the competitive market. 20% of online students in the US are at 10 institutions only. And we could probably name all of them. I won't name all of them, but these I'm sure look familiar. If you're going to go big, you need to really understand that your success is still going to come with strong local ties. You need to still skew your marketing in a tight radius. And then if you're going to compete with those bigger schools, the data says 10 to 20 fully online programs with some on-ground infrastructure to help the support and help the reputation are the best ways to do it. But you really don't want to go big until you have a dozen plus programs to offer. If you're stepping into it with one niche online offering, do not extend your marketing dollars nationwide and try and compete with some of these big players who have the marketing money, who have the reputation, who have the teaching infrastructure in place. You really want to start with niche programs, localization, and then lean on hybrid offerings and grow from there. This is our last section. I know we're coming down close to time, but just a couple of slides here on digital strategies. This is, again, common across, to reference the webinar title, common across the most successful offerings right here. This is the piece that we know firsthand better than anything. Statwax, we are digital marketers. This is not to toot our own horn. This is pure data and studies of online students. They remember digital touch points more than traditional ones, period. They're looking for online offerings. They are already focusing on a level of technology and a level of digital learning. They're going to remember digital touch points as well. This is a 2019 study from the Learning House. It's a third-party think tank in higher ed. It looked at the most to least remembered marketing content among current online students. Search engines, email, and your website were the three most remembered, most impactful at helping an online prospect choose a school. Direct mail, radio, and billboards were the least. Everything else in there is in the middle, and you can see the order. I was surprised by some of it. We do YouTube. We do in-app advertising and podcast advertising. A lot of it works really well for traditional universities when you have to maintain brand awareness and top of mind awareness for months during that research journey. But remember, this is a 4-week maximum on average research journey start to finish that your prospects are making. So cultivating awareness through mailers and radio and hitting them 1,000 times over 6 months, not going to work. Being there right when they're searching, being very aggressive and immediate with email blasts, making sure that core information is available on your school website, that is what is going to resonate most. And if you're going to be on search and you're going to pay for it, know going in, you are not going to see the same cost that you might see right now for the same programs in an on-ground capacity. Search queries in higher ed involving the online modifier are growing extremely quickly, but they, as you can see, are 4 times the average cost. There are 3 times as many advertisers on each online-based query as on just a normal one. Business administration versus online business administration. We're talking jumps of $15 per click, but we're also talking higher engagement. If you can afford to be there, and remember, search engines, very great place to be seen and remembered, often in a short window of time. If you can be there and you set yourself up right with the right exact match, the long tail keywords, very program specific, call out the right value propositions, you could see a lot better success because that's an area of search that is growing. We talked about the elephant in the room. This is just during this COVID-19 pandemic. This is just Google Trends for online education, distance learning, and online learning. Online education, growth after March, but not nearly as much as distance learning and online learning. If you're looking to build out a keyword list on some existing paid search, look to some of these terms right here. Google Trends can definitely be your friend. They have a COVID-19 resource center with a lot of these trends. These are the ways people are searching that they used to not search before. COVID has shined a light on it. If you're going to do digital, specifically paid search or even SEO content, look to the way that folks are seeking out this type of education. This is analysis that Statwax did on our own paid search campaigns across numerous schools. Since February, moving on to just last week, search queries involving online and then search queries involving near me or other localized ones. You can see the spike. The lesser line, what's the word I'm looking for? Not blurry, but the less vibrant line, let's go with that, is your trend line. But look at the darker blue. Look at that spike after the first week of March. People seeking out higher ed with online as part of their search has taken off in ways we have not seen before. So this data is probably going to change dramatically since it's from last quarter by the time Google's new report comes out toward the end of this month. You need to build out your paid search terms and build out your marketing content to speak to that online aspect, to target it specifically in long tail terms. Try and mitigate your costs. You don't want to have a phrase match keyword for business administration and hope to pick up all of these online queries. You're going to pay an arm and a leg to do that. You need to get more specific with your targeted keyword list. This is just some final bit of information from Google. If you have specific programs as of Q4 2019, so non-COVID, about 3% of any program-specific searches contain the online modifier. My guess is that's probably doubled. If we just look at the trend line now, at least doubled. But as of ending 2019, anytime someone searched for a specific program, about 3% of the time they were looking for it online specifically. We anticipate that to grow. This is just if you're interested in a specific program. You can look at that when I send the deck later because I know we're right on time here. Takeaways from this. Get specific with your targeted keywords. Loop that online modifier in. Call out online or virtual in your ad messaging. Play into that localization. Spew your budget within 150 miles. Target other school brand names. Look for students looking to transfer, especially now if they're not sure when they can go back to campus or if they want to. Target, do some competitor conquesting with a little bit of your budget and look for X school transfer credits, things like that. Use your messaging to talk up the transfer credit opportunity, knowing that nearly a third of online students, that's a big thing that they want answered. Lean on custom audience lists, target past stop outs, target transfer students. If you can get those lists, things of that nature are a gold mine if you can get them. And then utilize remarketing. But remember, this is a decision happening extremely quickly as compared to what you might be used to in your traditional marketing efforts. Be a lot more aggressive with your emails, a lot more aggressive with your remarketing. Shorten your look back window and loosen your frequency capping so that you can be top of mind immediately and help push a prospect through that decision very quickly. So I know that we ran through quite a bit at the end there, but would love to just turn my share off here and expand this and answer any questions that might have come up since then.
Yeah, Brian, one that we had was if we could quickly walk through how you make sure that you don't cannibalize your campaigns if you're running both an online and an on-ground classes.
Definitely. So cannibalization is definitely a big factor that we look at when a lot of schools who offer both, especially during a normal time when campuses are open. What we tend to start to do is focus the online marketing effort solely to those online specific searches. They've been growing for a while now. Even in normal times pre-COVID, they made up 3% of program specific queries, but on the whole, they were on the rise quarter over quarter for the past couple of years. The best way to avoid cannibalization in our eyes is if the search is specific to online or virtual or distance, we go ahead and play that very heavily in messaging. If the search is just for a program in general or for the school in general, we let the landing page and the content on the website help inform that user, that prospect, that both options are available. Let their journey then bucket them into remarketing specific to on-ground or online. If they arrive on a program landing page on your website that mentions all of the information about the course, and oh, by the way, online offerings also enrolling X, Y, and Z, and they start to explore that online piece, we have them in an online, basically, remarketing bucket. We'll start serving them online information first and foremost. The biggest thing you really don't want to do if you can help it is if you have lead capture or an inquiry form, if you're going for inquiries, try and avoid letting them select the campus or online on the same form. More often than not, we find that's a great way to avoid getting any leads for the campus. People always just choose online. Even if they would like to go to campus, it seems to be an easy choice. It's kind of like in healthcare. We have found that most people choose nursing if they don't really know. It's what they hear about. It's what they learn about. They feel that if they're going to give information to a rep who's going to call them or something, choosing online might make the conversation easier. Don't cannibalize yourself by giving them the choice on the form. Make them search for it or navigate to it on your site to deliver to you the intent that they are looking for online, and then skew messaging that way as you go forward.
Excellent. Well, I know we're about 5 minutes over. We did have a couple more questions, but don't want to stress anyone's time. So do you want to try to take one more, or do you want to go ahead and wrap it up?
We can do one more quick one. If anyone who has to pop off, totally understand, and we can follow up afterwards. But yeah, let's fire one more in there real quick.
We have two that are very similar, so we'll kind of wrap them into one. But how do you create a distinct identity for your online programs and your marketing? And what's the fastest way to build that brand reputation, even if you are a school that's known but have never offered online before?
Definitely. I would say the big identity and the quickest way to really gain that good reputation is have your infrastructure in place. Don't come into it, and we've seen a lot of schools, especially during COVID, when they had to pivot fully to online, really take a reputation hit because the infrastructure wasn't there. It was very easy for the students to tell this was an on-ground offering that they quickly scanned into some PDFs and are trying to make it work. I have professors who don't know how to start a Zoom call, things like that. I get it, technology happens and all that, but the best way is to be able to highlight in your marketing materials that this is a fully developed and available offering made for online. You don't want to highlight or give the impression that this was made for in person and you're just trying to make the best of it and port it over because you have it already. You need to consider that it's got to be mobile first. It has to be things that can be done on the go at random times. If you have live elements, it has to be something that can be communicated with calendar invites ahead of time with other digital strategies. You need to be able to call that stuff out and say, we have virtual study groups. We have mobile first curriculum, mobile first classes, different ways to submit your assignments, even on low speed internet, things like that. Get that built beforehand and use it in your messaging and in your information. And people will naturally start to understand that you know what it takes to be a successful online school, because they are researching schools that are not doing that, that are falling on their face, trying to make it work with non-online curriculum. And it really shows. And once we move out of COVID, excuse me, I think the lasting impact is going to be that there will be no more hiding for schools. There will be no more hiding behind poor online offerings. This has shined that light on what it takes to be a good, reliable, long-term online solution, and people are now going to know what to look for. Great question.
Excellent. Well, I think that's all that we have time for. Thank you
Great.
from both of us for joining, everyone. We will send out a recording of this webinar, a link to it in email if you'd like to revisit it, along with information on our upcoming webinars after this.
Yes, thank you all so much, and everything Alicia said, but thank you for listening. Hope it was helpful today. If you need anything, follow up with us directly. We're here to help. Otherwise, have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.